3, 2.
No, I'm not. start. So, morning and welcome to you all to our National Services Policy and Implementation Policy Planning Workshop. I want to welcome Honorable Minister Hill, as well as our consultant, Mr. Michael Julian. And of course, welcome to you all, our stakeholders. P.S. Please. And welcome to our permanent secretary, Mrs. Sancia Bennett Templer. Welcome, P.S. All right, so we're going to start with the national anthem. So I'm going to ask you all to stand, please. Thank you very much. Of course, we wouldn't begin any proceeding without invoking the presence of the Lord. So we're going to ask Miss Avis Matthias to say prayers. Miss Matthias.
Good morning, everyone. Let's quiet our hearts before the Lord. Father, we come before you this morning. We thank you for your goodness towards us, and we thank you for your grace and your mercies that have brought us this far. Forever, Lord God, we are grateful because you have been so good to us, and we are glad this morning. And so we thank you, and we praise you, and we glorify you, and we worship you because of who you are. Father, we come together to discuss matters that are critical to the development of the services sector. But as the songwriter says, we can't even walk without you holding our hands. And so we ask, Holy God, that you will hold our hands this morning, that you will instruct us according to Psalm 32, verse 8, and teach us and guide us in the way that we must go. I pray according to Isaiah 11, verses 2, that the spirit of might and counsel and knowledge and understanding and the spirit of fear will rest upon the participants this morning. I pray your blessings upon us today. I pray, Holy God, that you'll direct us. And I pray that you will get the glory after this, and that everything, mighty God, will be to your glory and honor. Breathe upon us even now as we commit this stakeholder workshop into your mighty and your capable hands. And we tell you thanks in the name that is above every name, and that is the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Amen.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Ms. Matthias. Ladies and gentlemen, I must apologize for coming in late. I had a little bit of an emergency this morning, because as I opened the car door to jump in to come down, a lizard jumped in. And And there is absolutely no way I can drive a vehicle with a lizard in it, because if it crawls on me, I am going to crash. And so, after all effort failed to get this lizard, which has now gone into a vent, I relieved my husband of his vehicle, so he's stuck at home today. But my apologies for being a little bit late this morning. And I think people can connect with that, right? All right, let me recognize our Minister, Senator the Honorable Alvin Hill, Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce. Thank you so much, Minister, for being here with us this morning. Let me also recognize our consultant, Mr. Michael Julian. Morning, Mr. Julian. And of course, Mr. Carl Hyatt, who has been leading this initiative to develop a services policy for Jamaica. He is the chair of the committee that is working on this, and I know he has been providing guidance both to the committee and to the consultant as well. Thank you, Mr. Hyatt, for stepping in for me this morning. Appreciated. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome you all here. I hear we had a good problem this morning. Minister, we are oversubscribed in terms of the persons who are here with us, and I think that just underscores how important an initiative this is. And so we are very happy to have you all here with us this morning. Consultation is such an important part of what we do. What we do for businesses and people of Jamaica, and certainly we need to hear from you and have your comments incorporated in the work that we do. So thank you so much for being here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, the Jamaica National Services Policy and Implementation Plan is a strategic document that outlines the vision, goals, objectives, and actions for the development of the services sector in Jamaica. The services sector is a vital component of our economy, accounting for more than 70% of our gross domestic product and roughly 60% of our labor force. It encompasses a wide range of activities: tourism, business process outsourcing, education, health, culture, creative industries, logistics, finance, and professional services. The services sector also plays a vital role in enhancing our competitiveness and innovation. It provides inputs and support to other sectors such as agriculture, manufacturing, mining, small businesses. It enables us to access new markets and opportunities through trade agreements and digital platforms. It fosters creativity and entrepreneurship among our people and helps us to diversify our economy. However, we cannot take services for granted. We have and face many challenges and risks in this dynamic and competitive global environment. We need to constantly improve the quality and efficiency of our services. We need to invest in human capital and technology adoption. We need to strengthen our regulatory framework, our business environment for services, and our institutional capacity. We also need to address, as for other sectors, issues of informality and environmental sustainability. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, this consultation is so timely and so relevant. I understand that the policy and implementation plan that will be presented and discussed today is the result of extensive consultations and collaboration among various stakeholders, including government ministries and agencies, private sector associations, civil society groups, and development partners, many of whom are here today to participate in this further consultative process. It provides a comprehensive framework for addressing the challenges and opportunities facing the services sector in Jamaica. The successful implementation of the policy and plan will require the concerted effort and commitment of all stakeholders, which makes today's workshop especially critical to the process. The Ministry will play a leading role in coordinating and facilitating the implementation process in collaboration with other relevant ministries, agencies, and the private sector. We will engage with the private sector, civil society, and development partners to ensure that the policy and plan are aligned to their needs and expectations. I look forward to your continued support as we progress to finalization and implementation of this National Services Policy Plan. Ladies and gentlemen, the National Services Policy and Implementations Plan is a milestone achievement for Jamaica. It reflects our vision to become a service-oriented economy that leverages our comparative advantages and creates value-added opportunities for our people. It also demonstrates our resolve to overcome the challenges posed by COVID-19 and to build back better for a more resilient and sustainable future. And so I urge all of you, each and every one here this morning, to support the finalization and implementation of this policy and plan. Together, we can strengthen the development of services sector in Jamaica and contribute to our national development. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear from our minister, and every time I introduce him, I mention the fact that he says if he goes to a church and he's asked to speak and it's a funeral, he's going to find a way when he speaks to speak about export. And you will undoubtedly have heard him speak about the gap in our balance of trade. You will have heard him speak about where Jamaica falls relative to other Caribbean islands. You have heard him give the numbers, and I'm sure you will hear it again. An important area that we need to look at is export in services. So we need to enhance export in services to grow the economy. We need to improve and be more competitive with our services, also to support our businesses. Minister would have announced, I think yesterday, the launch of our MSME Roadshow, where we will be going across the island to meet with small businesses and talk about how the ministry supports them. We have partners coming who will look at how and provide information on the services and capacity building initiatives and so on that they provide to small businesses. Provision of services to small businesses, especially IT services, which Prime Minister mentioned yesterday when he spoke about Jamaica moving to becoming a digital society, is so absolutely important. And so I think it's good to have you all here this morning. And I know that my minister will be putting forward to you all of the reasons in a much more dynamic way than I have why this engagement this morning is important and why this National Services Policy and Implementation Plan is so critical for the development and growth of Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, I now ask Minister Albin Hill to address us. Minister. You can clap him more than that, a little bit more than that.
Mr. Sansia Bennett Templar, our Permanent Secretary, who you just heard, in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. So I quickly add Jamaica's Business Ministry. You see it going up all over the place. We'll make sure we put on the tagline, people must know what we're about. We must behave that way. We must talk that way, dress that way when it's necessary. We're about business. Mr. Michael Julian, consultant, whom I've known for some time. Good to see you again, Mike, and to be working with our ministry. Mr. Carl Hyatt, who has put this together, lots of work, Principal Director of Policy Planning Project and Research Division at the Ministry. Ms. Sophia Wellington, Senior Director, Industry Division at the Ministry, and specially invited guests that I understand for whom we're happy. Some of them didn't register. We'll get them registered. And for all of you who are here, we're very pleased to have you and to see that you will be working with us to make sure this is a real reality. I join our Permanent Secretary in welcoming all of you who have graciously accepted our invitation to join us today in this important process of consultation regarding National Services Policy and its implementation plan. Services is a big part of our GDP. We talk about the imports of goods and so on, but generally we don't talk about the export of services and the provision of services. If you think about it, the tourism ministry, and I'm going to ask Staten to make sure over time we include the proceeds from tourism as an export, because we build our hotels, we train our staff, people from overseas come and bring, luckily, lovely, hard currency, and they buy our hotel beds, they buy the pools at the hotels, they buy the food, they buy the taxi service, they buy all kinds of Duns River Falls services. All those are services that we sell, and it's that whole gamut, that whole spectrum of services that I want you to look at during these sessions. The Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Jamaica's business ministry, is largely responsible for policy development and implementation, investment promotion, business support, monitoring and regulation, and as part of our portfolio, the ministry takes responsibility for the implementation and monitoring of, among other things, the MSME. PS just told you we're going on the roadshow. At least 4 are planned, starting in July 27th, in Kingston. The second one on September 21st is that Mandeville or Montego Bay, but it's there, one of them. And we'll be going to Ocho Rios and, of course, Montego Bay, as I said. So we have the MSME and entrepreneurial policy, trade policy, craft policy, PS. I need to get that going. We're not moving as fast as that. I need to work with Minister of Tourism, JAMPRO, Culture for sure, and JBDC to make sure we pull that. That's a major industry that we've allowed foreigners to supply us with. You see, nice Jamaican flag and nice Jamaican something made in another country that we have to fix and make sure our craft policy is well in place. So they're working that area. In crafting policies, divisions of the ministry monitor their implementation through the 18 agencies and 2 departments which are in the ministry's portfolio. Clearly, this is written by a technical person. I usually say 20 agencies. They can work out which one is which. Okay. There is an obvious need for the National Services Policy, and I acknowledge the efforts of the Policy Steering Committee, the Jamaica Foundation for Competitiveness and Growth Project, and the other ministries, departments and agencies, and my own officers within my ministry for the great work done taking the draft to this point. The development of this National Services Policy is critical to Jamaica's economic growth. For although the services sector contributes up to 70% of Jamaica's gross domestic product, the sector is fragmented and in urgent need of coordination and integration. That's a big part of what you're going to do. Don't take away the overlapping, take away the places, the gaps that exist between one ministry, one agency and the other, and make it as seamless and smooth as you can, so people who need to do business with these agencies and bodies can get it done seamlessly and smoothly, efficiently, and therefore productively and profitably. This consultation with you, important stakeholders drawn from several ministries and industries, will advance the groundwork that has been led by the Ministry's Policy Planning Project and Research Division, led by Mr. Carl Hyatt, who is here on the platform, and supported by Mr. Julian, our consultant to his left. The policy and the plan are ultimately intended, the policy and the plan, which you must work on, ultimately intended to elevate Jamaica's domestic services. We need to position the country as a major player. I would like to change the indefinite article a to the definite article, the major player in the regional and broader international services sector by addressing the myriad of development challenges. I don't want this to be a simple talking shop. Talk, yes, but we need clear policy suggestions with measurable outcomes. That's what you must aim for. That's what I'm asking Mr. Julian to guide you on. And P.S., Mr. Hyatt, we must make sure the integration and collaboration we talk about must lead to clear policy suggestions with measurable outcomes. So every time you talk about something, you say, okay, how I measure it? Is the policy clear? And if somebody can, anytime you write anything and somebody can have two interpretations to the writing, it's not clear. Rewrite it. Make it clear so people don't get confused. This ministry and many of our stakeholders recognize that there are trade and regulatory issues that need to be resolved to create order and improve the services sector. Many of you know them. They include absence of timely date for services, limited adoption of international standards, limited or no incentives for some services sector. And we want to make sure we incentivize. I'm glad this phrase is in here, because I come from the private sector. And the view the private sector tends to have is that people in government, government officials, some of them they call bureaucrats. Bureaucrats, when the private sector says bureaucrats, it's not a compliment. Just for you to know. Okay? So, when you hear them say the bureaucrats only put up barriers, them don't put up anything to help you. There's a reason why they tend to say that. Much of us who are in government tend to think, how do we control? How do we make sure they don't make a mistake? So I talk to young entrepreneurs, and they give this to me in my face, and I'm putting it right in your face. They say, uno. That means uno and me. Okay? Because they might talk to me, and they mean say, they really don't mean uno when they might talk to me. It means say, we in cabinet. Them idiot in a cabinet. It's so young people talk. It's all right. We get used to it. They didn't say idiot, but we know that's what I mean. Okay, so they say, uno, go up there and make policies. Primarily to catch 2 or 3% of bad players in a sector. Bad players in business. And uno, forget the 98, 97% of people who are good players. You don't give them any incentives. In fact, the things that you put up to catch the 3% that are bad actors are impediments invariably to the 97%. No, you guys, change your mindset. When you are writing a policy, you must say to yourself, how much incentive am I putting in this for people to behave well? How much enabling am I offering? How much facilitation I'm offering to make sure people want to follow the policy? Don't just put rules to catch the 3%. When you catch the 3%, you come down with a heavy hammer. Now, of course, people don't like when we speak like this. Them say me a private sector, I don't understand how government works. No, I really do understand. What I want for government people to understand is how you get people to do what you want. Your granny used to tell you, say, you catch a lot more flies with honey than castor oil or engine oil. So use some honey, no man. Facilitate with some honey and enable with some sugar. Not too much, it's not good for you. Too much. Okay. In other words, guys, when you're writing policy, and as you work on this today, right through this, constantly say in your mind, is this policy that I'm helping to craft going to encourage people to do more business, do a lot more of it, employ more people, and let us get wealthy out of it? While we're following some basic rules, some of them are international rules. We don't want to break those. That's not my encouragement. My encouragement that the 3% who break, you come down with a sledgehammer on their foot. But don't impede the 97% of people who are working well. You want them to make sure they build our economy. So I want you to look, I want you to start changing your mindset. Am I helping, am I impeding, or am I just making rules like a judge? Well, you're not judging anything. You're helping people. And I keep saying to everybody in my ministry, if you don't want to serve, if you're not in the service business, you're in the wrong ministry. Go somewhere else. Because me serve every day. Me get up and serve. And I go to Atlanta, I leave from Fort Lauderdale, I get to the hotel at 2:30 in the morning, I have a 7:30 meeting with business people. I get up and serve. Last night I was here at the JCC Gala Awards dinner till midnight. I was in TVJ studio at 10 to 7 to be in Smile, Jamaica to talk about the MSME trade roadshow. So, me not apologizing to ask anybody to work hard. That's how I've gone through school, that's how I've run banks, that's how it is. So I'm not asking you to do anything, and I don't want you to work like that all the time. You can't do that. You will have burnout. But please, make sure we're providing the services that people need and help them. This ministry and many of our stakeholders recognize that there are trade and regulatory issues that need to be resolved to create order and improve the services sector. Many of you know them. They include the absence, and that's where limited or no incentives for some services sector, insufficient access to finance. So we have Exim Bank, we have the PIR, that's a Productive Incentive Relief Program. You might hear more about that today. Unavailability of highly skilled workers, the third main objective in my ministry after growing exports and increasing investment is to make sure we train people by apprenticeship to make them available in the workforce that is now tight. You need to propose minimum service standards agreements. P.S. I want us as much as possible. Mr. Julian, I want that as much as possible. Minimum service agreements. That means you have a clear minimum, we make it transparent, and we tell you when you will get it. So if you're going to have the CSC coming in, the CSC will tell you, we're coming in, this is what you're going to get. If you come to get the PIR from the ministry, what are the minimum service standards? So people can hold us accountable. The reason why we don't set up those standards, we don't want to be accountable. Well, you're not going to be good unless you're accountable. That's to me now. When you love Usain Bolt, like me, you admire his appearance fee. I won't even tell you what the man gets for each appearance, just to appear. He has a lifetime contract with Puma. You think him get that by not following standards? Every single time he runs, in practice or ran, in practice or in competition, there's a timer there. Either by his coach or the officials at the meet. You cannot be excellent unless you're accountable. And there's only one standard I want us to have: excellent. I mean, I apologize for that, because I know so many of you want to be excellent. You went to school that way, you trained that way, and very often people don't ask you to, so I'm asking. And I want it to be measured so that you can know if you're getting to excellence. So we must offer standards. And you know what those are. Service standard agreements that are very clear between the agencies of the ministry and the people who they serve. So P.S., she knows I will look for it, because I'll go back and look and I ask. I'll sometimes 2 or 3 weeks may ask for something, and maybe the people that work with her figure something, me forget, and then they get a little note. P.S., what about this? Usually the note is on WhatsApp, like 2 o'clock in the morning or 5 a.m. or some silly time like that, when it comes back to my brain. So that's a very good part of management. 80% of good management is follow-up. Not which school you go to, not who your parents are, not how much money you have. Just if you're going to manage something, 80% of it is good is follow-up. So, me follow-up. Using a 3-tiered assessment scale, the subsectors were ranked from low for limited growth potential, moderate for mostly domestic growth potential, and high for those with strong domestic and export growth potential. So there's that word, export. Let me tell you why I have put it as the #1 objective of this ministry. Soon after I came in, I asked the PS for all kinds of numbers. So I saw the foreign direct investment going down. I saw, then soon after I came, Staten published the 2021 trade figures for the country. You mean the organizer is interrupting my guests? Thank you. So I got the 2021 trade figures. And you may have heard them before, but they're so stark that you need to hear them regularly. I wish I could get NNN and RGR and whoever, and NCU to talk about them at least 3 times a week. Maybe every morning would work, because here they are. In 2021, we imported goods and services of $5.975 billion US dollars. We exported a diddly $1.441 billion US dollars. The negative trade balance was $4.534 billion US dollars. Everything a billion in US dollars. So, all right, I said, boy, this is amazing. So I said to Mr. Hyatt, who runs, part of his job is to run the research department in the ministry. So, Mr. Hyatt, I want the numbers, or trade balance numbers, from 1960 to 2021, which was, I was in the year 2022, so we could only go to 2021. Well, when I got those figures, I mean, I sort of thought it was bad, but it is debilitating. It is almost depressing if you don't have a strong constitution, but I play tennis regularly, so my constitution is strong. So me hold up. So this is what it sounds like. Nadine knows I play tennis regularly. So this is what it sounds like. Between 1960 and 2021, we had 1 year of positive trade balance. 1 year in 61 years. You know when that 1 year was? 1966. So then, you all know, so we had a GDP growth average over 50 years of 1% or less. And you have a negative trade balance for 61 years. It doesn't prove causational. They're not causational to the other, but the correlation is so strong and so long that you know that if you have that kind of low trade, that negative trade balance, you're probably going to have very low, if not negative, GDP growth. So if we are going to become a wealthy country, we are going to have to grow exports exponentially. We have to export a lot more. Otherwise, we are going to remain a poor country. And none of you in here like that, and me don't like it at all. So I'm encouraging you. When last do you ever speak about export? You never speak about export. You speak about politics. You speak about politicians' salaries. You speak about politicians in foreign countries. And you speak about export. Everybody you talk to that is in business, you must say, are you exporting? They never thought about it. In this hotel, last year in Christmas in July, I came here and spoke, very soon in the ministry. And I talked about export. And one lady, 10 days, 2 weeks later, WhatsApp me, because me go out my number, everybody have it. WhatsApp me and said, look, I do this business. She told me what it was. And she said, I thought about export, but when you said everybody should, I got on the plane, went to Miami, and I'm sending off my first container, 40-foot container. I mean, a little bit enough. It's not a little crate or a box. a container of our products to export, and she hasn't looked back. So we have to talk about it. Yes, give her a clap. I'll tell you the name later on. I'll send it out one time. But you have to talk to people about it. You think about it, when we have the pandemic, how much time we talk about it so that people can be aware of it. Well, we have a pandemic. We're not exporting nearly enough, but I have good news. I went to Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Atlanta. Every one of the 3 cities I go to, I met Jamaicans who have left here and are importing Jamaican goods, and them pleading with me. We want more ackee. We want more callaloo. We want more ackee. We want more callaloo. We want more Scotch bonnet. We want more pimento. We want more avocado, which we clearly, in the proper English word, call pear. Yes, that's what they want. They want mangoes too. So what that tells me, as after I left NCB, I became a consultant. When I was consulting, the first place I start is the market. Do you have a market, or can you create one? And if you don't have any of those, really the business is a problem. We have a market. I tell you how big the market was. One of the guys who import has a tie-up with Goya. Goya is a very big food company in the United States. And Goya wanted 20 40-foot containers of ackee. They could get only 1. Now, ackee takes 5-6 years to grow. Callaloo is 3 months. They can't get enough callaloo. And we're over here, so we don't have enough job and can't make money, and we're not exporting enough. So I invite investors over there and here, get into the production. We have a supply side problem. We have a production problem. We need to get people in there, and what I'm suggesting to you, you get people to get into a consortium. You need capital. You have to have 5, 6, 10 acres of land, maybe 200 acres of land. You put down an ackee farm, you're going to have to guard it. You're going to have to make sure that while it's growing over 7 years, you intercrop it with French bean and yam and whatever else, cocoa, dasheen, and all those are products that they want over there. And you intercrop it until it starts to bear. When it starts to bear, the ones that are bearing now, it takes 7 years to come, you go and prune them properly, fertilize them properly, spray them if they have to get sprayed, maybe not sprayed because they want organic stuff. So you find ways. In other words, become scientific about it. We have case that can help you. And it's not something that you have to get a regulation from the Bank of Jamaica to start a bank. I'm putting out the idea that we must talk about export and get people to produce. We have the markets, we're not producing enough. So even as you talk about the services, slide this in there, the export part. I know you're going to do it. National Services Policy will address service subsectors, financial services, information, communication technology, AI will come up, professional services, education, apprenticeship. I don't want us to educate people alone. We have a lot of lawyers, I respect them, but we need a lot more mechanics, electrician, tilers. The construction industry is on my back. They can't get people. Work is out there, but we must train them as apprenticeship. Why? Because Germany, after the Second World War, did not come back because they had PhDs and philosophers. They came back because they put in a tremendous apprenticeship program. And the people went to make BMW, they went to make Mercedes-Benz, they made chemicals in BASF and other chemical companies, and Germany became the exporter to the world. We must train our people in apprenticeship. So PS, that's on the line. Health and wellness services important. People are getting old. Jamaican nurses have a major cachet. It's an investment direction that we should go. Cultural entertainment and sporting service, we all know about that. Having identified and the subsector services priority areas in each of the 6 subsectors have been determined, as well as the issues of mainstreaming. The policy will, in this regard, focus on improving productivity. Improving productivity, you have something that you have to follow, certain steps. Let's say you have 5 steps. When you start off, it takes you 20 minutes because you're learning it. By the time you get to 6 months, you have mastered this so well that your production team is moving what used to take 20 minutes in within 5 or 6 minutes. That's real productivity improvement. And innovation will be, if you have something that takes 12 steps to do, you say, why are we doing 12 steps? Maybe we can take out 6 of those steps, combine 2, and you're down to 4 steps. That's innovation. So you innovate and increase productivity. All possible in your studies. Strengthening country competitiveness. We must become #1 at whatever we do. Gender mainstreaming. Now, gender mainstreaming to other people overseas usually mean primarily women. Funnily, the problem we have in Jamaica is primarily men. 70% of our university graduates are UNA. Look around the room. You only bring in 6 months, so we don't say is only exclude men. What, 6 is, we have 6? Well, you know what I mean. It's not women that is the primary issue that we have. The 300 or 400 people who are outside the labor force in this country are young men. Those are the ones that we want to have apprenticeship, give them discipline. And so when you talk about gender mainstreaming, remember the men, please. In Jamaica, we can say that because other places there's the women I'm talking about, and probably they have a problem there. Climate change and, of course, economic management. Economic management, 3 important metrics I want to leave with you. We've just come through a pandemic. After the pandemic, our GDP is growing higher than before it was in 2019. Our debt to GDP is down, okay, and our unemployment is the lowest in our history. No other country in this hemisphere, from Magellan Straits up to the Arctic, can say those 3 metrics post-pandemic. Jamaica is an outlier in a very positive way, and you should give the authorities, I mean the government, a clap. Not so much, the donut. Why am I saying that, guys? It's not because I really want to clap enough, but we must recognize that although we talk about business, and it's easy to jump up on the government, what we went through, and when you look at the other countries in the Caribbean, Jamaica really is ahead. And we must not sit in our conscience because of our particular bias. Clearly, I vote JLP, you might vote something else, but there are times when every time I talk about the recovery, I start at 2013, because I have written in the newspaper, in the Gleaner, when I used to write for the Gleaner, that when Dr. Phillips came back, my belief is that like the cabinet table is from here to where the television, the steamers are to the door, Dr. Phillips was up here so by himself, and everybody else in the cabinet crowd out by the door. And no one sit down with him after him come back with the IMF program. It was difficult. Many people didn't want that. So you recognize that hard work is done, but recognize as well that since 2016, we continued the process and improved it and came out with good results. And many in the world recognize us for that. So economic management is part of what I sell when I go to sell Jamaica, that we are doing well, we have good legal system, foreign exchange arrangements, so on. But economic management is important. For a country to experience and sustain economic growth, we must increase investments and grow exports. I have been consistent in my calls to the private sector and to local and foreign interests in this regard. But this call for more investments and greater exports must be complemented by a radical improvement in productivity. So as you go through this today, Mr. Julian and Mr. Hyatt and the rest of us, make sure we focus on that. Robust productivity gains propel economic growth. Increase productivity. So ask yourself, when I'm making this policy, when I'm making this change, is it going to help productivity? One of the enabling things you should do rather than one of the things that block people from going forward. 3 policy areas are essential for sustained productivity growth. Fostering innovation. I mentioned about innovation already. Cut down something that, you don't have to create an app or a microchip. You can look at a process that has been working in a certain way and say, well, this should be better. Why are we taking 8 steps to do this? Change it, fix it, and you can innovate and make it. So fostering innovation at the international frontier and facilitating the diffusion of new technologies to firms at the national frontier, creating a market environment where the most productive firms are allowed to thrive, encourage them, reduce resource misallocation. Don't give to places resources that they're not going to use well. As you contemplate these pointers today, consider that the 6 subsectors identified earlier in the services sector present significant opportunities for maximizing our growth potential. In spite of some challenges within the education sector, Jamaica is undergoing a steady process of transformation. I'm just going to talk about Hard Trust and say what they're doing, apprenticeship, we've been talking to them. But think of the education budget. It's 149.8 billion Jamaican dollars. That's 150 billion Jamaican dollars. It's the second largest budgetary allocation. Ministry of Finance is higher because they pay the interest and the loans that we have. But health is 118, well below the 150 billion. Ministry of National Security is 112, well below that. So education, and when you hear people talking about education, they're complaining, and sometimes the complaints are right, but a big part of the taxes you pay go to pay teachers and others in education and to provide resources for them to work. So we need to continue that, but we need to get results from those expenditures. And as we look at how the services sector, and that's a service sector, all of those things should be considered. How are we spending our money? Is it the best way to do it? And can we do better and get it done? So the implementation plan, which will be eventually finalized, should be ambitious and attainable. Must be measurable. Don't give me some, fancy qualitative terms. I want those, but I want to see qualitative measurement. Must be audacious, big, but should be easily articulated and demonstrable, actionable. We want action. Jamaica stands at a pivotal place in its history and development. We are doing extremely well in some instances. We need to do a lot better in certain. We who meet here today must be wise in our decision making and how we go about things. And I must encourage you, go home, talk to your friends, talk to everybody about how we're going to export a lot more and grow the things that we can grow for which we have markets. I wish you well. I might come back and see how it's doing, but there's a lot of work to do. I'm glad you have come. I'm glad we're overflowing. Over to you, PS, Mr. Hyatt and Mr. Julian. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, the Minister of Business. I can assure you, I told you you'd hear about exports. He never speaks without speaking about exports. He never speaks without speaking about investments, about skills training and apprenticeship. So you heard all of those this morning because it's a doctrine that he is trying to develop for us, and we have to speak it into being. Because the more we hear it, hopefully the more we will adopt it and take action on it. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Elevating Jamaica as a major player in regional and international services sector. Recently, under this same FCGP program, which is funding this particular consultancy, a consultant was hired from within the region to do some work for us. They are doing an excellent job in the work that they are doing. But I was a little jealous because I thought to myself it would have been so good if a Jamaican company was undertaking that work as against a very good company from a very small island. So, there's a lot for us to do to make sure that we improve in our services sector, and I have no doubt that the plan and policy which is being developed and the work this afternoon will take us there. So, Mr. Minister, you'll be happy to hear, sir, that don't leave, that the apprenticeship program that you're talking about is already included based on what I've looked at. I see that the consultant has apprenticeship in the plan. Before you leave, Mr. Minister, I know that you have to leave, but we wanted a little picture moment. Knowing that you had to leave, we thought we would break for that, and we crave your patience, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Hyatt, who do you need?
We stand here, photographers stand here. Right here is good, sir. Right here. Right here is good. You get my banner? Sure. Right.
Any of the steering committee members here? Quick. I know you've been doing the work, but I'll get you in the picture.
Come on, if you're coming, come move.
Committee members, anyone here? Okay, so we have a four. I'm going to.
Take the break now. Okay, stop at 10:30. Stop at 10:30.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, a slight change in the agenda. So it's now 10:30, so it's really, or past 10:30, so it's really time for the break as per the schedule, although we haven't finished all of the items, gone through all of the items on the agenda. But we want to go ahead, the break is here, and have the break at this time. I also, unfortunately, have to take my leave for another meeting, but just so happy to have been able to be here with you this morning. What I have seen so far in terms of the implementation policy and plan definitely seems to be heading in the right direction. I see the policy goals all laid out on the table. I hope many of you, if not all of you, will be able to stay with us throughout the day to help us to finalize this policy and this plan. Thank you very much, and Mr. Hyatt will take over and reconvene in a few minutes. Thank you.